How to tell if your brother or your sister is a narcissist. This is part 2. You can go back and listen to part 1 if you want to. I'm actually infuriated right now. I'm a bit angry. I'm upset because I've just watched an episode of Lost Men, which is an amazing series, by the way. I love it. But this one was very triggering for me. So in this episode, this guy, Phil, like if you don't know the series, like I don't think I need to give context because it's not really about that. But in this particular episode, this guy, Phil, is reunited with his brother. And so his brother starts sharing like memories of like how they grew up and just making jokes about this guy. And it was triggering for me because this other guy, his name is Mike, I believe. So Mike keeps making fun of Phil, and everybody's just laughing and having a good time because Mike is like charming, he's good looking, he's funny, and everybody just thinks it's funny. And everybody's laughing and having a good time at Phil's expense. And then Phil gets angry and then starts retaliating and then says all the things, all the bad things about his brother, like you didn't finish like your thesis, I believe, you didn't come to see grandma when he was sick, just listing a bunch of like failures or horrible things about his brother. And then everyone views Phil as the bad guy because, you know, he has said all these horrible things about his brother. But when Mike was making fun of Phil, everybody was just laughing along and it was fun because, hey, Mike is fun, Mike is funny, Mike is charming, we love Mike. And this is just like, in a nutshell, the story of my life. I believe in my very first episode, I mentioned that the thing with narcissists is that they are very charming, they are lovable, they are funny. Most of the time, people want to be around them. Or, let me just speak for myself. I know this with my mother and my sister, who are both narcissists. I know that they are charming people, lovable people. People like to be around them. People want to be around them. People want to be friends with them. And what has often happened is that sometimes I would find myself as like the joke, or like, I don't know, what's the I feel like there's a saying that is not really coming to mind, but I would find myself being the butt of the joke, like others would be entertained at my expense. This didn't happen all the time, but this particular episode of Last Man on Earth was really triggering for me because it frustrated me that nobody saw that it's not right when the brother was making fun of Phil and everybody was laughing, and then when you retaliate, you like the bad guy. So I actually have a list of things because in this episode I wanted to get really specific with some of the things that I experienced from my narcissistic sister. So you can apply this if it's your brother, because I jotted down some of the things that I didn't mention in part 1. And so when I say she is this, you could just like insert, if it's your brother, he is something like this. Now, some of the things that I've written, they might not necessarily be part of like signs of being a narcissist. They just might be signs of someone who's a bully, someone who's toxic, someone who's negative, someone who's just not a great person. And I'm just gonna kind of like quickly go through them because I don't wanna stick to one point for too long because there are actually quite a few that I really wanna mention. So the first one is she's entitled. She thinks things are just for her and she gets to decide who gets what. So I think I noticed this part about my sister when I came back from varsity. I think maybe it had happened in my childhood, but I didn't really notice it. When I went to varsity and I would come back home for holidays, I noticed this thing where my sister would even like tell me like this is my food. Like my sister has allergies, right? So there's certain foods she can't eat. And for example, I can eat eggs. She's never like had eggs in her life. She doesn't eat eggs. And she would say that she should like basically imply Like sometimes, like she wouldn't necessarily say it, explicitly, say that she should have the cheese because I can have eggs. Like she's so entitled and kind of like thinks she can just tell whoever like who gets what, and I get this because I can't have this. Like, I'm sorry that my sister has allergies. That is not something I take lightly, but I love eggs and I love cheese. It's not my fault that I can have both. So I shouldn't be refrained from having cheese that she didn't even buy, that my mother would buy, because, like, I love cheese actually. I love eggs, I love cheese, and I don't have the type of allergies that she has. So I can have whatever I want. But let me move on. But essentially, she's entitled. She just thinks certain things are for her and she gets to decide who gets what. And my mother would let her get away with this until one day I pointed it out to her. But my mother would also let her get away with this. Another one, she's bossy. She loves to give orders, loves to be in charge. Now, this is not on some, because I remember I read a book by this lady. Why am I forgetting her name? But I think she was the CFO, the CEO. No, I believe maybe the CFO of Facebook. But in a book that she wrote, in one of the books that she wrote, she said something about like girls are usually said to be bossy when they are young, when they are like authoritative, when they are just like leaders. And instead of saying that, she made this joke. It wasn't actually a joke. Like, it's actually the right thing to say, that we should actually say, that's a young executive or director or CEO. But in this case, that is not the case. Like, the word bossy in its negative connotation, that's what it means for my sister, and that's what it could possibly mean for your sibling. She loves to give orders, she loves to be in charge. She doesn't have leadership skills. This is not like, oh, like she's bossy, like she could be like a boss one day. No, it's just one of those people who love to just be in charge of things and just like give orders and order people around. She's ignorant of her behavior, ignorant of other people's feelings. Funny enough, in one of the many attempts to kind of like talk to my sister about the way that she treats me, and even though many of the times I could never really verbalize how I'm feeling because I've never been good at expressing myself, one of the things that came out in one of those conversations, in one of those attempts, was her ending up saying that, sometimes I just got to forgive her when she does something to me because, she's ignorant. She just doesn't pay mind or attention to some of the things she says and does. And to have heard her like admit that herself was just even hurtful, because if you know you're an ignorant person, like if you know your weakness, if you know like where you lack, that means that's an area you need to pay more attention to. That's an area you need to work more on, instead of proudly owning it and just putting it on other people to just accept about you. So that wasn't fine for me, for her to just say that and just like give it to me as something I should just accept about her, instead of her working on it. So yeah, she's ignorant. She's ignorant of her behavior, and she's ignorant of other people's feelings. Like, my sister like pays no mind to how you feel. Like, she could say something so hurtful, like it would not even cross her mind that what she has said or done could, even in the slightest way, have hurt you. Like, it doesn't cross her mind. Like, the hurtful things that she does, her unhealthy and bad behavior, like, never, like, not even for a second does it cross her mind that she has done something bad. She thinks everybody loves her, or that everybody should love her. So I've mentioned this in other episodes, that my sister was made to feel special by my mother, and my mother did make her, I mean, she was my mother's golden child. And because of that, and because she is so lovable, so entertaining, so charming in the sense that not charming like, I think when I think of charming, I think of like in a flirty way, not in a flirty way, like this person who's just likable, this person who just you feel like you can easily get along with, you find them funny, you just want to hang out with them. That's the kind of personality my sister has. And because of that, she just got used to people just loving her, always wanting to be around her. And it's true. It's not a lie. She's not lying to herself. This is how people do feel about her and my mother. And so sometimes she just automatically goes in this mode where she just assumes, like, she doesn't even wait for it to happen anymore. Like, she doesn't wait for people to actually love her. She just assumes that they will, because she's great, she's special, she's funny, she's all of that. Like, sometimes it would even happen with, like, my friends or people I know before she would even get to know them. Like, she would just assume or imply that, they're just gonna love her because she's her. She takes credit for things she hasn't done or fully contributed to. This has frustrated me so much. I remember there's just this one example amongst many that really, I think that was like my tipping point. That was like when I was just like, I'm tired of this and I don't want my sister to just keep on taking credit for things that she hasn't really committed to. So this one time I wanted to buy my cousin who had recently been saved. He had been born again. I wanted to buy him a Bible. And I had saved up, because I just wanted to buy him a proper Bible. And if you know anything about proper Bibles, they're actually quite expensive. Like, to find a Bible that's $300 is actually cheap. So I went with her. Like, I blame myself for taking her with me. I should have just gone alone. I went with her to this Bible store and I found what? I found the perfect Bible. I can speak. I found the perfect Bible and it was $500. And I think I was short of 50 Rand, was I? 50 Rand or 100 Rand? I don't know. And then she said like she could contribute like the 50 Rand. Yeah, it was 50 Rand because I had 450. Yeah, I had saved up to like 450 to buy my brother that Bible. And so it was 500 Rand. And then she said she could contribute the 50 Rand because like she also think like this is a great idea to like give my brother this present since he has been like saved and is showing that he's committed to this journey with Christ. And it just annoyed me even right there because now when I gave my brother, my cousin, when I gave him the Bible, now I had to say it's coming from both of us when she only contributed 50 Rand. What is that? Is that like 5%? I don't know. But it frustrated me because in my cousin's mind, he's thinking like we equally contributed, even though I did console myself by saying that God knows, God knows that this was in my heart. I wanted to do it and he knows how much I contributed. But it's frustrating. It really was frustrating because it was my idea. It was something that I wanted to do. And because I was short on that 50 Rand, if like my sister hadn't come with me, I would have just gone back home and saved up, like, and just got, I mean, it was 50 Rand. It wasn't just going to take like forever, like, to get the money. And this is just one example amongst many. Like there was a time when my sister and I were part of a team at church and I hated working with her because she would take credit for things that she didn't really commit to or fully contribute to, things that I did when I did like most of the work. So this is just like another trait of a toxic sibling, takes credit for things they haven't really done or fully contributed to. Another one, she hates criticism even if it's constructive, but she's constantly criticizing everyone, whether it's people close to her, her family, her friends, strangers, or even people on TV. Like my sister is the queen of criticizing. She's the queen of finding something wrong with anybody. In part one of how to tell if your sister or brother is a narcissist, I actually mentioned that my sister was the one person, like, then my mother, but she was one of the people, I guess, who would just like point out every imperfection, like physical imperfection I had. Not even just physical imperfection, like every mistake I would make. She was the one to just be there and point it out and just make it bigger and make it visible. The other time when I just kind of had the surface level partial confrontation with my family because I couldn't really tell them everything. Like, you can't tell these people, you can't come out and say, you guys are narcissists, you guys are toxic, you guys are horrible people. Like, it was like a partial conversation addressing the issue, but like it wasn't a full addressing of the issue. So one of the things that I did end up saying, because I did essentially say that they have affected my self-esteem. And one of the things that I pointed out, because my sister insisted that I give her an example of how she affected my self-esteem, because, she wouldn't do that in her mind, because she loves me, right? Wrong. She loves me in her head, but doesn't actually love me in actions. But anyway, so the example that I gave her after she insisted was that even like, when you go grocery shopping or just buying something at a store, and when you get to the cashier, like, because I think I don't know if I'm naturally someone who's anxious and nervous, or if it's because my family has treated me like this, and then I became that person. I'm not sure. But I would just get anxious over little things like that, like maybe just paying for something, and then I just get nervous, or just, do something that kind of shows that you're nervous, or end up embarrassing yourself. Instead of my sister, just being there for me and just letting me know, hey, it's okay. Like, or maybe you made a mistake, or maybe, like you said something, blah, blah, blah. Instead of my sister being there for me, she would be the one to just point it out and kind of like maximize the situation and be like, why did you do that? Like, why were you so slow? Blah, blah. Like, she would maximize the situation. But my sister, she hates it. Like, she hates it. She gets so defensive. She gets angry. She gets upset when you criticize her. Like, even if it's something that can help her improve on something, my sister hates criticism, but she dishes it out like it's free cake. Like, she gives it, whether it's me, whether it's another family member. Sometimes she doesn't directly say these things to other people. I think with like extended family members, or even some of her friends, they would really need to like stay with her for an extended period of time to really fully see the type of person she is, because people just find her funny and, this great amazing person, but they don't really know her. In my previous episode, in the part 1 of this, how to tell if your sibling is a narcissist, I actually mentioned that I think some of her friends actually, just because some of her friends just randomly, mysteriously just disappeared out of her life, and it would hurt her like it would anybody. But I think it's because in time, like over time, they realize that, like my sister's behavior is wrong. It's not only wrong, it will make you feel like crap. Like at the end of the day, you will realize that you feel like crap about yourself because of the way she treats you. Like even people on TV, like my sister, whenever we were watching something, she would just point out people's mistakes, people's flaws. Like, yeah, that's her. She's always negative, always sees the glass half empty, and no matter how much you try to make her see the positive, she always sees and remains negative. Like my sister she will come to you with like stuff about her life or stuff about other people's lives, like this has happened to so and so. And when you try to be positive, like she just insists on being negative, but I see that she perceives it as being real. as like keeping it real. You know those annoying people who say, I tell it like it is, when they actually just hurt other people? Those people who are brutally honest. Like honesty all the way, every day, I am all for it. But we have to be gentle in our approach. This is why Apostle Paul in the Bible was like, we have to be gentle with one another. Like, even in just teaching other people and telling other people about Jesus, telling other people about their gods, that, hey, that's not the true God that you are worshiping. We have to be gentle in those things. Telling other people that, hey, worshiping ancestors is against the will of God. We have to be gentle in those things. Granted, there are times and like a place for everything. I suppose there are times where you just have to like firmly assert a certain point, but in most times we just have to learn to be gentle in saying certain things. So I think my sister, in her mind, when she remains negative or persists to view something in a bad way, she's thinking she's just keeping it real, but she's actually just negative. She just actually has like kind of like a dark view of life. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I think the best way I just know how to explain it is just by calling out those annoying people who think they tell it like it is when they're actually just rude and mean. Another one, she loves attention and even does silly things to get attention. I see this also in my mother. Like, my mother sometimes does like silly things just to get attention. And obviously, my sisters like her because they are both narcissists. Like, for example, sometimes my mother will sneeze in the most annoying way. Like, I know different people sneeze in different ways, but like sometimes you'll tell like she just wants you to say something. And like now I no longer even give her that pleasure. I'm just like, if you're gonna be silly, just be silly by yourself. I'm not gonna entertain you by like gasping or saying like, wow, why do you sneeze like that? Like, so like my sister will also just sometimes do silly things just to get attention. She thinks she's great and better than other people on a lot of things. For example, the fact that my sister's beautiful. And this was also, I mean, most of these things were largely influenced by my mother, but in like the previous episode in part one, I did say that my mother at times, because not all the time, at times my mother felt more comfortable complimenting my sister and her beautiful physical features. Like, I don't know if this is a narcissistic thing, but like my mother and sister, they're really big on like physical features. Like, like it's really dominant to them. It really matters how you look. I guess that's why they criticized me like physically, because like physical looks, I mean, I know like especially like when looking for like a partner, like you obviously care how someone looks, but like my family just really cares about looks. So my mother would just like really just compliment my sister based on how she looks. So like my sister, when she's great or better at something, like she will just act like she's better than others on those things. And one of those things is the fact that she's beautiful. So like she thinks she's all that. And when she realizes that she's not as beautiful or someone else is beautiful more than her, like it will be just, I don't know how to explain it. It's either she will try to find something, a flaw, something wrong about that person, or it will be this backhanded compliment, like, you know, like this person is so beautiful, you just have to admit it, but it's not genuinely like a compliment. Anyway, let me just quickly run through the others and then be done. She's lazy, she doesn't care, and she doesn't care how that affects other people. So I don't know if this is like a narcissistic trait, but it's definitely part of her toxicity. She's just, my sister's lazy and doesn't care how that affects me, and it has affected me, especially when we were kids and like doing chores was like a big thing. Like she'll be lazy and doesn't care how that affects other people, just like the fact that she knows she's ignorant and doesn't care how it affects other people. She doesn't see her hurtful words as hurtful, but as merely a joke that I take too seriously. Even if I tell her that it was hurtful, she will insist that she was only joking and will give this lukewarm apology or give an apology that basically says, I'm sorry that you actually took that seriously. She speaks harshly and speaks like she's talking to a toddler. Like sometimes my sister will speak to me like I'm a child. Like she's just like rebuking a child. She makes you feel like you're too sensitive or too emotional when you express that you don't like something she said or she did. She believes that she's a really loving, friendly, and kind person, but she's not. And this is largely influenced by the fact that she's liked by a lot of people. She's likable, and a lot of people want to be around her and be friends with her. So she believes that she's really a loving, friendly, and kind person, but she's really not. She expects to be made to feel special, but doesn't put in the same effort to make others feel special. Like, for example, my sister will not like buy you anything special or do anything special for you, but expects people to do that for her. Like, my sister will not make an effort to make other people feel special, but she expects that from other people. She loves for people to feel sorry for her, but doesn't really care about what others are going through. She does, however, really care about others so that she maintains the image of being a caring person. So like this is this is like a paradox. Like she doesn't really care about other people. She really loves, especially for me. Like she loves for me to feel sorry for her, and then she cares about other people outside this home and not me, her sister, simply because she wants to maintain the image of looking like a caring person. She sometimes seems bored or disconnected when you're talking to her. She basically doesn't really pay attention to you like a normal sibling would in a healthy relationship. She loves talking about other people in a bad light. She's very judgmental and feels like she has the right to have an opinion about other people's lives and believes that her opinion is always right. She's exhausting to talk to. Like the number of times I've just stepped away from a conversation I've just had with my sister and I just realized that I'm emotionally drained. She's rarely impressed or compliments anything you do because she's either jealous or doesn't want you to feel good about yourself or what you've done. She has radical mood swings and hates it when others are moody. She can go from being annoyingly joyful to surprisingly upset for no reason or a reason that you don't know of. And then she expects you to just go with the flow of whatever mood she's in. Your mother never really reprimands her for her bad behavior or her toxic behavior. She's insensitive, but thinks that she's just saying it as it is or simply pointing out the truth when she is actually just being insensitive. She doesn't understand why people eventually disappear from her life, and she lacks the ability to check herself and see if she did something wrong in the friendship, but always blames the other person because she always thinks she was great in the relationship and she did nothing wrong. I can only assume that the reason some of her friendships end is because the person becomes tired of being bullied, of being bossed around, and being belittled by her. She seems to find joy in other people's failures. She never says this, of course, but you hear it in the way she talks about it. She sells the image of being very confident and sure of herself, but if you really notice, you'll see that she's extremely insecure and that her confidence is not real confidence but a mask for her own insecurities, self doubt, and a low self esteem. She only does something good or kind for you so that she can hold it against you for when she needs you to do something for her, or so that she can have a list of things that she has done to prove to you and to prove to herself that she's a good person. Her help is never genuine. Her kindness is mostly not genuine and not out of the goodness of her heart. She hates that you are actually a good person, but would never admit that, and she probably doesn't even admit that to herself. She takes advantage of the fact that you are a good person. She's secretly bitter and thinks life is only unfair to her, making her think that things come easy for you. She never takes note of how hard you work for what you have or what you have achieved, and doesn't really see life being hard to you as it is to her, which is why she feels entitled to sympathy and she feels entitled to things being done for her because life has been so unfair to her and her alone. She makes you feel stupid, especially when you don't understand or know something. And she knows it, so she feels smart, so she feels bigger. Everybody seems to feel sorry for her, and somehow you're the bad guy whenever you stand up for yourself or you retaliate. There's actually this TikTok video that comes to mind when I think of this point, where it's like it's just a joke, like most TikTok videos are. I guess some are serious now. Like some TikTok videos even talk about mental health, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. But anyway, so in this TikTok video, this person says like, "Oh, you're dumb," and then the other person says, "You're stupid." And then the person who said, "You're dumb," they start crying and saying, "You think I'm stupid?" And the other person, like, okay, this is getting complicated. But then the other person who said, "You're stupid," then they start apologizing. But, like, do you get what I mean? Like, this is how my sister is. She will say to you, "You're dumb." And then when you retaliate and say, "You're stupid," then she cries. Like you just said the worst thing ever, but then you just said I'm dumb and I said you stupid, but now you're crying. That's how it is with my sister. Another point, she makes fun of you in front of other family members or your friends, and sometimes others will join and you become the butt of the joke. I guess this will be the last one. The same hurtful things that she does to you, they seem to hurt her more when it's done to her. Again, it's like her saying you're dumb, and then when you respond and say she's stupid, she cries. And then you're like, how? How? When you can serve criticisms so freely and so easily, how does this hurt you? Because, like, I would expect someone like my sister to not get hurt by stuff because they are just mean. They are bullies, but bullies, as we mostly know, they can't take their own medicine. Just to close this off, it gives me no pleasure to say these things about my sister, but I'm at a point where I have to accept that she's like this, because I understand if you're at a place where you think like these things are still forgivable, which you should for yourself, not for her. You should eventually get to a point where you forgive him or her. And I haven't gotten to that point, and I'm kind of like okay, because I'm learning that this is probably just going to take time, just like it took time for them, my mother and my sister, to destroy my self-esteem. And I'm praying about it. I'm not just giving up on forgiving them. And I don't want to just hold on to this bitterness, but it is not fun for me to say these things. But if I don't accept them as a fact, I will keep getting hurt. And if you don't accept the fact that your sibling or your parent or whoever is a narcissist in your life, if you don't accept the fact that they are horrible, toxic people, you will keep getting hurt because you will keep making excuses for them.